Seville is one of the most passionately visited cities in Europe. People come for the cathedral, the Alcazar, the flamenco, the tapas bars that run until 3 in the morning, and they stay in the same cluster of well-marketed hotels that every travel site recommends. Meanwhile, on a quiet street in the Museum District, there is a boutique hotel inside a restored 19th century palace that most of those same travel sites have never once mentioned. That is the one we are talking about today. Here is what Seville does to people. It gets under your skin in a way that very few cities manage. There is something about the combination of the heat, the architecture, the food, and the particular intensity of Andalusian culture that makes the city feel more alive than almost anywhere else in Europe. More physical, more present, more insistent that you pay attention to it right now, in this moment, rather than somewhere else in your head. People who visit Seville for the first time almost always come back, not because they did not see enough the first time, but because the city gave them something they were not expecting, and they want to find out if it will do it again. The challenge, and this is the challenge with any city that has this kind of magnetic pull, is finding the right place to be based while you are there, because where you sleep in Seville changes how you experience Seville. The neighborhood matters, the building matters, the atmosphere of the hotel matters, because all of it becomes part of what the city is to you. Gravina 51 gets all of that right. It sits on Calle Gravina in the El Museo district, named for the concentration of museums and cultural institutions that define this part of the city. The building is a meticulously restored 19th century Sevillian palace. The design is one of the most considered and quietly beautiful interiors in the city, and the scale, deliberately, intentionally small, creates a level of intimacy and personal attention that the larger hotels of Seville simply cannot replicate. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why Gravina 51 has developed one of the most loyal repeat guest followings of any boutique hotel in Andalusia, and why, once you know it is there, choosing anywhere else in Seville starts to feel like a very unnecessary compromise. We spend a significant amount of time looking specifically at the Andalusian hotel market. It is one of the richest regions in Europe for historic properties, palaces, monasteries, merchant houses that have been converted into luxury accommodation. Most of them are good. A handful are extraordinary. Gravina 51 falls into the second category. It appeared consistently in our research as one of the properties that serious Seville travelers mention quietly and protectively. Once you understand what it offers, that protectiveness makes complete sense. Here is what we are covering. We start with the building and its history in the context of Sevillian architecture. Then we go inside and talk about the design in detail, because the interior of Gravina 51 is a genuine story in its own right. After that, we cover the location and what the El Museo district offers as a base for experiencing the city, then the full guest experience. And at the very end, there is one thing about Gravina 51 that I think explains its loyal following more precisely than anything else. That insight is worth staying for. Let us start with the building, because in Seville, the building is never just the building. It is always a document, a record of who the city was at a particular moment in its history, and what they chose to express through the way they built. The 19th century was a period of significant transformation for Seville. The city was emerging from a long period of post-colonial economic contraction and reinventing itself as a modern European city, while simultaneously holding on to the Moorish and Baroque architectural heritage that made it visually unlike anywhere else on the continent. The palaces and townhouses built by Seville's prosperous families during this period reflect that dual identity precisely. They are built on Andalusian spatial logic, centered on a patio, organized around natural light and air circulation, with the street facade giving almost nothing away about the richness inside. But they incorporate 19th century European decorative ambitions, ornate ironwork, elaborate tilework, painted ceilings, grand staircases that were designed to communicate status and taste to anyone who was invited inside. The building that houses Gravina 51 is a perfect example of this specific architectural moment. From the street, it is restrained, almost modest by Sevillian standards, but step through the entrance and the interior unfolds in exactly the way that Sevillian domestic architecture has always unfolded. around a central patio that becomes the emotional and organizational heart of everything that surrounds it. The restoration was handled with the kind of precision that a building of this quality demands. Original features were preserved wherever structurally possible. The tile work in the patio, traditional Sevillian geometric patterns in deep blues, greens, and terracotta, was restored to its original specification rather than replaced with approximations. The ironwork of the balustrades was maintained. The proportions of the rooms were respected. The result is a building that has been returned to its best self rather than converted into something that uses its history as decoration. The interior design of Gravina 51 is the element that most guests mention first when they describe the hotel. And it deserves that attention because the design achieves something that is genuinely difficult. It is in full respectful dialogue with the historic architecture of the building while being completely and confidently contemporary at the same time. The color palette throughout draws directly from the Andalusian tradition: deep terracotta, warm ochre, the particular shade of white that Sevillian walls have always been. Not bright white, not cool white, but a warm, slightly aged white that catches the southern Spanish light and turns it gold. Against these backgrounds, the furniture and decorative choices are clean, precise, and modern without being cold. Each room has been designed individually. The proportions differ because the original rooms of the palace differed. The ceiling heights vary. Some rooms have original painted details that have been preserved and incorporated. Some have original tile floors. Some look onto the central patio. Some look out over the quiet street. What unifies them is quality. Real quality in the materials, in the finish, in the thought that went into every specific choice. The kind of quality that you register without necessarily being able to articulate immediately. You simply feel from the moment you enter your room that someone who cared enormously about getting this right was responsible for every decision. The bathrooms deserve a specific mention. In a city where many historic hotel restorations treat the bathrooms as a problem to be managed around the constraints of old architecture, Gravina 51 treats them as part of the design project. Generous, well-finished, with the quality of fixtures and materials that a hotel at this level should offer as standard rather than as an exception. The El Museo district is not where most first-time visitors to Seville end up. The tourist gravity of the city pulls people toward the cathedral and the Alcazar in the Santa Cruz quarter, and that pull is entirely understandable. Both are genuinely extraordinary. Both deserve the attention they receive, but El Museo is a different kind of Seville experience. This is the neighborhood of the Museum of Fine Arts, housed in a former convent and containing one of the finest collections of Spanish Baroque painting in the world. It is the neighborhood of the Alameda de Hércules, Seville's oldest public park, a long tree-lined promenade that functions as the social hub of the city's creative and intellectual community. It is the neighborhood of the best independent restaurants and bars in Seville, the places where the locals eat, not the tourist menus, the real thing. From Gravina 51, you can walk to the cathedral in 12 minutes, the Alcazar in 15, the Triana Quarter across the river with its ceramic workshops and flamenco history in 20. But you are based in a part of the city that most visitors see only briefly, if at all. And that means your experience of Seville has a depth and a texture that the standard tourist itinerary simply does not reach. The Alameda in particular, 2 minutes from the hotel on foot, is one of those urban spaces that changes character completely depending on the time of day. Morning market energy, afternoon calm under the trees, evening aperitivo culture spilling out of the bars onto the pavement. Midnight still full of people because this is Seville, and Seville does not consider midnight late. All of it available to you as a daily rhythm rather than an occasional excursion. I want to stop here and ask you something, because I think this is a genuinely interesting question for people who travel seriously. When you are choosing where to stay in a city like Seville, do you gravitate toward the heart of the tourist district because the access is easier? Or do you deliberately choose a neighborhood that is slightly removed from the main circuit? Because I think those two approaches produce fundamentally different trips. And Gravina 51 is a very clear argument for the second approach. Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know how this community thinks about neighborhood's choice when they travel. Here is what I have been building toward. The thing that explains why Gravina 51 has such a loyal repeat guest following, and why that loyalty is so specific and so consistent. Seville is a city that rewards surrender. The travelers who get the most from it are not the ones who plan every hour and optimize every experience. They are the ones who allow themselves to be absorbed, who sit at the bar for another hour because the conversation is good, who follow the sound of guitar down a side street without checking where it leads, who eat later than they planned because the evening felt too good to interrupt. That kind of travel requires a base that supports it, a place to come back to that does not feel like a transaction, that does not feel like a brand experience or a hospitality product, that feels like somewhere that is genuinely glad you are there and has no interest in rushing you through. Gravina 51 is built for exactly that kind of stay. The scale is small enough that the staff knows your name by the end of the first day. The patio creates a natural gathering point that encourages the unhurried rhythm that Seville rewards. The neighborhood does not pull you into the tourist current. It allows you to move at your own pace through a city that is best experienced slowly. The guests who come back to Gravina 51, and they do come back with a consistency that says everything, come back because they found that the hotel made their experience of Seville deeper, not by offering more activities or better amenities or a more impressive lobby, but by being the right kind of quiet, beautiful, personally attentive place to return to at the end of a day of genuine exploration. In a city this alive, that kind of base is not a luxury. It is a necessity, and Gravina 51 provides it better than anywhere else in the city. So here is everything together. Gravina 51 is a boutique luxury hotel in a restored 19th century Sevillian palace on Calle Gravina in the El Museo district of Seville, Spain. The building has been meticulously restored with full respect for its original architectural character. The patio, the tile work, the proportions, all of it intact and beautiful. The interior design is a confident and considered contemporary interpretation of the Andalusian tradition. The location places you in one of the most culturally rich and locally authentic neighborhoods in the city, close enough to the main monuments but completely removed from the tourist circuit. The service is personal in a way that only a small hotel can genuinely deliver, and the entire experience is calibrated for the traveler who wants to actually inhabit Seville rather than just visit it. Remember, a palace restoration, a beautiful patio, the real neighborhood, genuinely personal service, and the perfect base for experiencing the city that gets under your skin and stays there. If this is what you are here for, the hotels with real stories, real buildings, real locations, then subscribe right now. The properties that most travelers walk straight past, the addresses that only reveal themselves to people who are paying proper attention. Hit subscribe, and you will not miss any of them. And leave a comment below. Has this changed how you think about where to stay in Seville? Would you choose El Museo over Santa Cruz? Tell me. I want to know, and I read every single response. That is Gravina 51. A 19th century palace on a quiet street in the city that does hospitality better than almost anywhere else in Europe. Small enough to know your name, beautiful enough to make you want to stay longer, in exactly the right neighborhood to make you feel like you actually live in Seville for however long you are there. Next video, we are heading to Portugal, specifically to a converted monastery in the Alentejo region, 2 hours from Lisbon, completely surrounded by cork oak forest, with a silence so complete that guests consistently describe the first night there as one of the most disorienting and beautiful experiences of their lives. That one has been on our list for a long time. It is going to be something different. Until then, find the quiet streets, find the buildings without signs, find the cities inside the cities. That is where the real travel happens.